Hey YouTube, it's Landon with Order the Traveling Hats, and today we're doing a little project on the Jeep. I needed something to do for the weekend, so we're doing another project on the Jeep, imagine that. I got my Jeep and it didn't have the power port in the bed, and I've kind of wanted power back there to be able to charge batteries, be able to run a fridge down the road someday maybe, and just have some kind of 12 volt power at a minimum in the bed we can run an inverter off of or whatever. So today we're going to do that. I've got the stuff together to do it. It took me a little while to figure out how I wanted to do it. I think I'm going to do it a little bit differently than some people maybe have done it in the past. I've got some reasons for that, and I kind of want to share those with you just so you kind of know how I do it and what my thought process was. I think, again, I'm kind of maybe coming at this a little bit overkill, but maybe not. We'll see. I'm not an electrical engineer or anything. I just kind of thought through this and know just enough about circuits to be dangerous. So let me show you what I got laid out over here on the table, and then we'll get started. Here's what we've got on the table today. I've just got some parts and pieces that we kind of got off of Amazon. I've got some flex conduit because I want to wrap all the wiring that goes back to the bed in conduit from the engine bay. Just makes it look cleaner, I think, and it also protects the wires. Gives it a little bit more of that factory look. This stuff's not too expensive. I'll post the link down in the description on where I got it. I just ordered it off Amazon and it came that way. This is some 8 gauge wire. Now the interesting thing is that's a ground. Obviously this is going to be the hot. You need a pretty heavy gauge wire if you're going from the engine bay all the way back to the bed. 8 gauge I think is overkill. I probably could have gotten by with 10, but again I wanted this to kind of be bomb proof, so I just went a little bit heavier. Just gives me the freedom to route this around the way I want to. You can calculate what gauge wire you need based on the amperage you want to be able to pull at 12 volts versus the length of the run, and there's actually several tables. I'll post a couple of those in the description as well. But you can just go kind of look it up. It's pretty easy. The math's done for you. You want to make sure you run a heavy enough gauge wire because you're going to need larger current draw over a longer distance, and that actually puts more strain on the wire. So a lighter gauge wire won't carry that load like a heavy gauge wire will. So there's, like I said, there's some tables out there that'll tell you how to do that, and we'll just post the description and the link for you. I got a big relay. This is a big 120 amp 12 volt DC relay, 100% duty cycle. It comes off Amazon. It's like 20 or 30 bucks. Again, post a link to it. But I wanted to have a relay to carry the current load and not be reliant on my VOS switch in the Jeep to carry that entire load. Granted, that's probably overkill. I probably could have just ran the VOS switch, but this is going to give us a little bit extra just to be able to make sure that the thing's bomb proof and we don't have any trouble. This is a small gauge wire. I think this is 18 gauge. This is just to run from the VOS switch relay to send a 12 volt signal over to this relay to actually send power back to the bed. So this doesn't got to be very heavy. It can be a pretty small gauge wire. Like I said, it's just basically sending a 12 volt very low current signal to close this relay. Not a big deal there at all. This is an 8 gauge fuse, so it's got a fused link in it. We're running a 20 amp fuse. I calculated it out, and that's going to give me a little bit of a cushion to be able to pull more current than I think I will ever pull through this thing. I wanted to be able to pull about 120 watts total peak, and this is going to give us more than that by just a little bit, so it's going to give us a little bit robustness, and I may go down to a 15 amp fuse. It just, the fuse set that I got, I thought came with a 15 and it didn't. It's only got a 20 in it, so for right now it's a 20. I think a 15 is probably more appropriate, but I wanted to make sure that it was fused from the relay going back to the bed. So this will come from the battery over to the relay such that if we pull a lot of current, it'll blow that fuse and kind of protect the system, protect the Jeep is the idea. These are 8 gauge to 1/4 inch spade connectors to be able to go onto the plug that we're going to put back there. So I needed those to be able to couple that. These are 8 gauge ring connectors to be able to go to the relay as well as over to the battery. So we'll crimp those on, and they've got some heat shrink in them, so we'll be doing that. This is just a fuse set. It's got your blade fuses in it. I didn't have any of these laying around, so I thought it'd be a good idea just to get them. It's a complete set. I got all of that off of Amazon. These are the 12-volt plug. These are marine grade plugs. They've got a nice little rubber stopper on them that kind of makes them pretty waterproof. They've got a threaded lock ring on the back, plus you can thread them with screws into your plate to give a nice flush kind of appearance. They're a pretty complete set. They come with everything you need to include your screws. They've got some wires in them with an inline fuse that we aren't going to use because we're using the stuff that I already got. Finally, I got just some cover plates that are metal. They're steel cover plates and they're galvanized, so those are pretty nice. I'm gonna use that to basically bend and make a bracket to be able to kind of mount this on somewhere, and I'll cut it down and have a bracket that goes up onto the inner fender there and bolts in. So we're gonna bend that in the vise and kind of shape it. I just felt like this was heavy enough gauge that it'll support that relay no problem. It's galvanized so it won't rust, and I can paint it, and it should give a pretty clean look under the hood. This is the hole saw that you need, and this is a 1 1/4 inch little hole saw, because these measure just under 1 1/4 inches. So I needed that to be able to drill a hole through the plug in the side of the bed that's we're going to pop out in a minute, and just kind of get that in there so it'll fit good. So needed that. Cut off wheels for a Dremel tool so I can trim these, and that's pretty much the setup that I'm going to use to get this little project done. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get into the bed now, and I'll show you guys that. And we got to get the plug out and work on it first, so we're going to do that step next. Alright guys, so we got to get that plug out of the bed, and it's kind of sealed in with a bed liner. I think they popped that in, and then they put the bed liner in over it. So we're gonna have to cut that out with a little X-Acto knife and then pry it out with a screwdriver, I think is what we got to do. So we're gonna do that. That got it out. So that is our cap, and we got to drill a hole in it and get it set up, and then it's just going to pop back in. Then we'll undercoat it or something to make it match again. Alright guys, so that's how the finished product's going to look on the plug. You can see I got one countersunk screw there and one countersunk screw there, and a nice little outlet that will pop open and close, and we'll be able to pop that back in to the Jeep where it belongs once we get everything kind of wired up. So for now that part's done. We'll come back to it in a little while. Alright guys, so I'm going to use this piece of metal to fabricate being a very loose term, a little bracket that we're going to be able to kind of bend down and mount our relay to, I think. So I'm going to give myself plenty of material. So I think I'm going to cut something like this. So we're going to cut out this. So we're just going to end this. So we're just going to come across to the cutoff wheel and make 3 cuts with the Dremel tool. And then we can kind of bend this as we want to in a vise pretty easily. There's a bolt here that I'm going to use this to index off of, and then I'm probably going to get a little body clip to fit into there for a bolt, and then I can use another bolt, and that way it won't pivot. It'll kind of stay in one spot, and we can have a good solid mount point for this relay here. There's some wires and stuff from some other things that we've done that I'm gonna have to maybe move here. There's a wiring harness too that I wanna make sure we don't impinge on, but we'll just kind of fabricate this and get it to fit with the relay on it. And
go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and get that started now. Alright guys, so this is our bracket. I just got done making, so we can kind of test fit it here. I think I'm going to get this bolt out real quick, and we can test fit it a little better. It's a 10. Okay guys, okay, so I've removed the bolt here that was holding this on. Now we can just kind of see how this is going to work. Let's see if the bolt will even thread through there without, I think it's gonna. Just kind of see what this is going to do. This is just kind of trial and error at this point. I'll be honest, I'm not a metal fabricator. Just like I said in the beginning of the video, I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm not a metal fabricator either. But you know, the cool thing about Jeeps is you don't have to be. You can kind of learn on the job. So we're going to kind of learn as we go. I'm trying to do this the best I can and in the safest way that I can. So I think if we do that, we're going to be able to drill a hole in this and get our little body bolt in there. We'll be able to secure this in 2 places. And that's going to be pretty nice. So I think if I come back with my relay, we can kind of start laying out where we want the relay to go. We're going to have to drill a hole in this, and I think we need to drill a hole just right about there. And that's going to give us plenty of room for the relay to sit. Have our connectors here and here. And then I think I'm going to bend it down some. Like, I'm going to take it off and put it in the vise and kind of bend it over a little bit so it's not poking up, but it can't bend over too far. I think it's going to hit the battery, but I think we can bend it down a little bit so it's not sticking up so far, and it'll kind of tuck it out of the way. So I'm going to take it off now and go do that, and then I'll come back. Alright guys, so I think I've got this about finished, and it's going to fit just like so. And we're going to ultimately drill another hole over here for this bolt, and be able to put another fastener over here with a little body nut thing. And for now I'm just going to kind of put this in, and I'm going to take it out, drill it, and paint it later. It's really humid today. I think I'm going to have a hard time painting it, so for now it's just going to remain like this, so we can go ahead and continue with the project. But that's what it's going to look like when it's all done. So you can kind of see there's a bracket. I bent it over. I cut it so that it doesn't hit anything, and it's snug, but it doesn't hit anything. It's not even touching anything. And I've got good access to both terminals, so we can bring power from the battery and route it around here with our fuse right here. And then we can bring from the other side and run our power line all the way back to the bed. And we still got room to get to the spade connectors. We've got grounds over here, so we can ground out the spade that we need to complete the circuit for the switch over on the bow switch on the other side of the engine bay. And that's gonna set us up nice and pretty to get this little project done. So that took a little bit longer than I wanted it to maybe, but I think the end product's gonna be really nice. It's gonna look good in here. You're never gonna know that it wasn't made that way when I'm done. I think I can make it look pretty factory, pretty good. So pretty happy with that. So let's move on, I guess, to the next part, and that's going to be kind of figuring out how to route our wire under the Jeep and get it along the frame rail up to the bed. So that's going to take a little bit of doing. I'm gonna do some of that off camera because I'm not really sure how to do it. And then I think when I'm done, we'll come back and show you kind of how that went. All right, guys, so I'm super sweaty because I think the humidity out here is about 88%. We had a rainstorm come through this morning. It was really nice, but this afternoon the clouds have burned off and it's just humid. And I'm sweating like crazy, but we're still working on this Jeep. So let me go show you kind of where we are with getting these wires routed. So I'm gonna turn the camera around. What we got is our relay here. This goes down into the hole under the inner fender here. You can't really see that. And then it dives under the Jeep. So we're gonna crawl into the Jeep now. Okay, so what you can see is it runs down there, and we're gonna zip tie it. So we're actually gonna give ourselves a little bit of slack so that it's kind of like so. It's gonna run kind of along the frame with the gas tank. So there's some kind of wires here that are already in a little harness, and we can zip tie onto that. This is just a test fit. I'm gonna pull all this out and we're gonna put it in conduit and then do it again. But I just kind of wanted to show you all it's red and easy to see kind of where it's running. So it's gonna run right along the top of the frame rail, all the way back to the bed, past the gas tank. Let me go down there and show you kind of where it's gonna run to. So you can see the red wire kind of follows this, and we'll zip tie it along this entire wiring harness. It's going to pass up over the frame here to keep it clear of the spare tire. Come on the other side of the frame rail, zip tie kind of up along here, right there, and then it's going to go into the bed through the plug. I've got the ground wire coming down, and there's the bolt for the brake line. I think I'm going to try to use that as a ground if it'll work, and we're just going to ground that little guy right there in conduit so I don't have to run it all the way back up. I think that should be an adequate ground to the frame to get us our 12-volt power back here. So what I've got to do now is pull all of this out, cut it to length, pull all of it out, and get some conduit wrapped around it, tape it all up, and get it ready to put back in, and then thread it back through and get it zip tied in place. So I'm going to get that done now. Off camera preferably, because it's kind of hard to crawl around in here and hold a camera. I need both hands, so I apologize for that, but that's how we're going to do it today. Guys, it is really, really humid still. It rained a little bit more. It really sucks today working in the garage. I'm just going to tell you, I'm not going to lie, it's super hot out here. I had to take a short break. I've got everything routed under the Jeep now, just like I showed you, except the only difference is now I've put it in conduit. So everything's zip tied up under there and in place, and all we're left with now is getting this done. We got to cut these to length and get the these little ends on there, and then we'll get it all buttoned up back here. So that's really all we've got left back here. And then we got a little bit left to do under the hood. We'll get to that in a minute. I'm gonna go ahead and get this part done and show you how I do that. All right, so what we're gonna do first is just, I'm gonna start with the ground. We're gonna cut back our conduit. I'm gonna pull this up just a little bit. I'm gonna cut the conduit back to about, right about here. We're just gonna trim the conduit back. We don't need it anymore because we're gonna take all this. Okay. We're gonna get our side cutters. We're gonna cut a little bit. I'm gonna cut about here-ish. Not lose our wire. Now what we're gonna do is gently take our stripper here, because this isn't really made for 8 gauge, it's made for 10. And I'm just gonna gently kind of use it to strip a little of this. Just kind of work around it so we don't damage the wire inside, and just kind of get through, nibble on the insulation until we got it ready to come off. And we're gonna just grab it and pull, and that gets us a nice clean little piece there that's gonna end up going in our hell. Alright, so I still got that there. This should theoretically just fit on there like so, sort of. Just be real careful with it. I'm gonna work it on there, and then we're gonna crimp it with a crimper tool here. And that's crimped on. That's not going anywhere. Now the only other thing we got to do is get a little heat shrink on there. Take our heat gun. We're gonna stick our heat shrink over this real careful, just like that, so that it kind of encapsulates all of that. And then we're just gonna kind of heat shrink it on. Just being real careful, letting it, watching for it to shrink. It'll just go ahead and shrink on there in a minute once this thing heats up a little. That one's done. Now all I gotta do is the other side now, the positive terminal, and we're gonna tape that up a little too. I like to try to really make these look pretty good, even though no one sees them. It's a pet peeve. I like my flex conduit and everything to be nice and finished and taped up. You never know, a little critter or something crawl in there. I don't know. They could still get in anywhere else, I guess, too. But I typically try to get tape around it like so, and kind of draw the tape down tight. And then just to trim it out, I like to take some flex conduit and put up on it like that, or some heat shrink rather, and heat shrink this down onto the rest of it. So we'll just do that real quick and heat shrink this down. Let it. And that gives us a nice finished looking end. Just so that we don't have any surprises. It's nice and finished, looks good. And now we got to do the other side. We're going to try to get it to be about the same length overall. So we're going to come back to about here and get our conduit off just like we did on the other side. And we'll strip it and get an end on it and call it a day back here, hopefully. Again, we're going to strip this just by using this tool to kind of get to the insulation gently. Try not to cut the wire with it. Like so. One of our our little crimp on ends here. And get it to go in the hole. Just like that. And we'll crimp it on just like we did the last one. So, just like so. Yep, that's crimped on good. Now we can get some heat shrink on this side. That's going to be red heat shrink. Let's see if we can get the, where'd my tape go? Here's the tape. Go ahead and try and get this tape down so we can just get all the heat shrink on. Maybe heat shrink it all at once, it'd be easier. Big heat shrink on, back over the flex conduit a little ways. And this is going to go on inside of it. Hope that's the plan anyway. Just kind of like that. Then we're going to heat all of this at once, get it all to go down. Really good. And that's how we do that. That's all done. Looks real good. So now we've got to get, that is kind of hot. Got to get these on here so they go like so. And this is the positive side. It's going to go just like so, sort of, if I can get a hold of it. It's still a little hot. There it goes. And now we've got those connected, and we're just gonna pop this guy back in where he belongs. Or try to. That ought to fix that up. So now we got our 12 volt power back here where it belongs. So that's all done. So now I got to show you what we did up front. So let's go up there and take a look. Alrighty guys, so here we are at the solenoid. Now I haven't tightened these up yet, but you can kind of see I've got my lead going back to the back of the Jeep. And then over here, we've got our other lead coming in right here. Goes to our fuse and routes around and comes up to here, and it's going to sit on the battery when we plug it in. I haven't wired it in yet. I want to get everything done before we do that, obviously. But I'm going to have it come in kind of at an angle under that battery cover and mount to one of the accessory lugs back here. So it'll be kind of hidden out of the way. Shouldn't be too noticeable. It'll hopefully look kind of factory. The only thing we have left to do is I got to get in here to these little spade connectors and make up a wire that's going to run from over here all the way over to that VO switch way over there on the other side of the engine bay. So it's going to route up and follow this, and I'm just going to zip tie it in for now. And then the intent is I think when I get everything closer to being done on the Jeep from an electrical standpoint, we're going to come back and make this into kind of a unified harness just to clean it up a little bit, because it is looking a little bit ratty in my mind. So but for today, we're just going to kind of route the wire. I'm going to go ahead and get started on that. And I'll show you that when it's all done and we can test this thing and hopefully button it up. All right, guys, so currently I've got the switch. Hold on, let's just see here. So currently the switch is off and I'm checking that, and I'm just going to the mounting plate and the outgoing side of the relay, the one that goes back to the back, and I get no voltage. So I'm going to turn the relay on now. And now we should have 12 volts. So now we got 12 volts running across that relay. So I think it works. I think everything's working the way it's supposed to. Let's go back and check the back and against the ground and just make sure that we've got 12 volts. So we're gonna go do that real quick. Here we go. There's 12 volts. So we got 12 volts back here, and I got 12 volts at the front. And we've got a good system. So, all right, I'm gonna show you now what we got. So this is our 12 volt outlet all installed. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty factory, I think. So all in all. And then we've got, when we come around the front of the Jeep, we've got our relay and our relay cables for the signal, 12 volt signal coming from the VO switch. This is the ground coming out of the signal side. And then these big cables are the leads. We got one coming from direct from the battery over here coming in. And then we got one going out that travels down towards the Jeep. Everything's in conduit. It's nice and shrink wrapped rather. And then when we come over here, we've got our VO switch all nice and wired up. You can see on switch 6, that's the switch we're using. The radio's on this one, and my A-pillar lights are on switch 1. And that's how you do that. So that is how you put in a 12 volt outlet in your bed. It was a real pain in the butt. It's super hot today. I didn't like crawling around under the Jeep. I got a little tired, had to take a break. So this took most of the afternoon. I don't think it normally would. If it was a little cooler and wasn't so darn humid and I wasn't so uncomfortable, I think I could have gotten it done quite a bit quicker. You do got to route that wire and be really careful about that so it doesn't get hung up on anything. I actually kind of tied it in along a couple of existing wires and harnesses that are clipped into the frame just to make it go all the way back and try to stay tucked up out of the way so it doesn't get snagged on anything. I did end up grounding to the brake line mount on the passenger side. That's convenient. That was a really good solid mount. Yeah, it's gonna get muddy, but everything under the Jeep gets muddy, so it really didn't matter where I was gonna ground it at. So long as it's got good contact, it shouldn't be a problem. We'll see how that goes. I can always redo it if I need to. Overall, a good project done, and glad I got this done. This is gonna allow me to do things like charge a battery or run a 12 volt refrigerator in the bed with switched power from the cab. So glad I got that done. That's one less thing on the list to get done for the Jeep. I'm Landon. This is Order the Traveling Hats. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell. Give us a thumbs up. Put a comment in. I do answer your comments directly. I try to be as thorough as possible. If we didn't show you something that you want to see, ask me and I'll try and show you, or at least tell you what I did to solve the problem. We hope to see you guys out there.